Hi, my name is Andrew. My sister gave me a book for Christmas by the South African John Buchan. It's called A Farmer's Year. It's really daily notes, scripture verses with notes attached to them, and they all relate back to his life as a farmer. I've been reading it because it struck a chord with me. We inherited a small farm from my wife's father, and I farmed it part-time until a couple of years ago. A few recurring thoughts have been churning through my mind since we were asked to stay at home by the government. One has been about light. This might seem like a strange thing to think about when our world has been turned upside down by a pandemic. And you could say the world is in a dark place. The weather has been amazing. In fact, I can't remember when we last saw rain. So light has been a theme in my mind. Life has been pretty good for me. I live in a lovely place. I live with lovely people. Apart from a few hours in the office each day, well, a good few hours in the office each day, I have time to do a few jobs around here. One of the things I've been doing is thinning trees. About 20 years ago, we decided to plant some acres in forestry, and we were advised by Quilcha to plant oak and ash. And the ash were planted in rows 2 meters apart, and the oak had to be planted in rows 4 meters apart, but with rows of conifers down the middle. And these conifers were called nursery trees. And the idea is that the conifers, larch and Scots pine, would grow up straight and tall, and this would encourage the oak to grow up tall and form a good straight trunk as they compete with the conifers for the light. Now, the thing about trees is that they grow very, very, very slowly, and particularly in their early stage. So after they're about 3 years old, they kind of self-maintaining until they get about 20 years old, I suppose. But they just they grow away, and they grow very tightly together, and it's hard to fight your way between them. So really, there's no point in going near them. So you kind of just forget about them. And we did. We forgot about them incredibly well. So last year we just thought maybe there's something we should be doing about the trees, because probably was time. So we sought advice from a professional forester, and he came and visited the plantation, and he was horrified by how tall the conifers had grown, and they were actually meeting at the canopy and starting to shade out the oak altogether, and the oak was beginning to die, and some of them did die. But yet in the areas where I've cut the conifers down, the oak has rejuvenated, particularly in this spring weather. The leaves have come out, and the canopies you can see the new shoots are growing in to fill the canopy again, and they're starting to grow back again and form a new canopy in the gaps left by the conifers. This is what led me to think about light. So I had a look at my Bible, and there are 261 references to light. From Genesis, God saw the light was good. He separated it from the darkness, right through to Revelation. For instance, in John 3:20 says, everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light, so that their deeds will not be exposed. That's so true. Bad things happen in the dark. When I used to travel for work and leave Joyce alone with the boys at home, she was always more nervous at night time. We talk about keeping people in the dark when we don't want to tell them something, We talk about our dark secrets. We talk about the dark web, people being in dark places. They're always negative connotations. The world's physical energy comes from the sun. It causes plants to grow, and plants can't grow in the dark. Even under the trees here, the vegetation has died back. In John 8 verse 12, Jesus says, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." When we were teenagers, we were always trying to work out our place as Christians, as young Christians in the world around us. And we'd have discussions about what sort of music we should be listening to and what sort of films we should go to. And I remember at one stage, I think it was The Exorcist was a film that was running at the time, and we really felt that maybe this wasn't the sort of film that young Christians should go to, but we were probably quite keen to see it as well because it was very popular. And a friend of mine, same age as ourselves, but he a very wise guy, he used to say, imagine if Jesus was visibly standing beside us. What would you do if he was visibly there? Would you do all the things you do now? So that kind of gave us pause for thought and look at our world view. And I suppose that's a way of shining light on the situation where once the light is there beside you, you focuses your mind a bit on the things you can convince yourself are okay. I planted some potatoes on St. Patrick's Day, and I was weeding them last week and accidentally disturbed some of the shoots of the potatoes. And I noticed that before they burst through the soil, they're kind of shriveled and yellow looking. But once they come out, they're dark green as they capture the energy from the sun and capture carbon from the air and feed the tubers down below ground. It led me to think about our lives as Christians. In order for us to be properly fed, we need to bask in the light, Jesus being the light of the world, from where our strength comes from. How can we grow spiritually if we stay in the shade, ignoring the light? And we all know who the Prince of Darkness is. The poor oak nearly died because they were shaded out by the Scots pine, blocking their light. So we need to look for our light to Jesus and spending time with him. As I have been cutting down the conifers and thinning the trees, perhaps we need to look at our own personal walks and do a bit of gardening in our souls and in our lives, weeding out the things that maybe distract us from Jesus, the things that maybe are unnecessary, that perhaps are fun or easy to do. From my point of view, it's usually laziness. In Romans 13:12, it says, "The night is nearly over, the day is almost here. So let's put aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armour of light." That's an armour of light. So by spending time with Jesus, we're arming ourselves, we're protecting ourselves for the days and for the things that life throws at us, and for those decisions that we might want to try and convince ourselves are okay, but in fact, maybe if Jesus was standing beside us, we wouldn't do. So let's put on the armour. Let's get our lights out from under the bushels. Let's stand our lanterns on the hill and shine as Christians and reflect the light of the world.